There is a moment in every story, a single, quiet second, right before everything changes forever. You don't always recognize it when it's happening. You might even scroll past it. But when you look back years later, you'll pinpoint that exact moment and say, that was it. That was the second the whole world shifted. And right now, in the summer of 2026, we are sitting directly inside that moment. The rap game is about to be turned on its head so violently, so completely, and so permanently that the people who are currently celebrating, the ones popping bottles and patting themselves on the back, are going to look back at this exact period and realize that they were celebrating inside a burning building. They just couldn't smell the smoke yet. Because Kendrick Lamar? He's not just preparing to drop new music. He is preparing to rearrange the entire architecture of hip-hop. And the signals, the very specific, undeniable, impossible-to-ignore signals, are coming from every direction right now. If you've been paying attention, you can feel it. And if you haven't been paying attention, buckle in, because we are going to go through every single piece of evidence, every cryptic signal, every producer whisper, and every industry source report that is telling us the same unmistakable thing: the king is coming back outside. And nobody on the other side is remotely prepared for what that means. Before we dive all the way into this, and trust me, this is going to be a deep one, because there is a lot to unpack here. If you're new to this channel and you found your way here because you want real, substantive, analytical content on what's actually happening in hip-hop right now, rather than lazy takes and recycled narratives, then hit that subscribe button right now. This community exists for people who think deeper about music, about culture, and about the chess game that the greatest artists in this generation are playing. We do not do surface level here. Now, let's get into it. Here is where this whole story begins, and the beginning matters enormously because the person who started this chain reaction is not a gossip blogger, not a social media personality with an agenda, and not some anonymous industry leaker hiding behind a burner account. The person who cracked this story open this week is someone who almost never speaks publicly, almost never makes noise online, and whose digital footprint is so deliberately minimal that when he does open his mouth, or in this case, when he does type 3 words, the entire community should stop everything and take notice. His name is Deets. And if you don't know who Deets is, then you've been listening to Kendrick Lamar and Baby Keem without knowing the fingerprint behind some of their most important work. Deets is a producer. But calling him just a producer is like calling a master architect just a construction worker. This guy is deeply, intimately embedded in the PG-Lang ecosystem. When you look at his credits and you go through the history of what he's built alongside Kendrick Lamar and Baby Keem, you start to understand that this isn't a hired gun they call when they need a beat. This is a collaborator, a creative partner, someone who exists inside the circle where the real decisions are made. His Genius page reads like a highlight reel of some of the most important moments in Kendrick's orbit over the last several years: Family Ties, Gloria, Baby Keem's self-titled track. This is a man who has been in the room when greatness is being constructed. And that matters enormously for what we're about to discuss. On Friday, May 22nd, during the afternoon, approximately 24 to 48 hours after an industry insider dropped a bombshell report that Kendrick Lamar's new album was essentially finished and in its final stages before release, Deets did something that broke his entire established pattern of online behavior. See, here's the thing you need to understand about this guy's social media presence. He almost exclusively posts to document his accomplishments. He shares the music he made. He shares the milestones. He is not the type to get into commentary, cryptic messaging, or hype building. His feed is a record of work, not a promotional machine. Which is exactly why, when he stepped outside that pattern entirely and posted just 3 words, let's get it, every single person who understands the significance of who this man is and what he represents felt their hair stand up on the back of their neck. 3 words. 3 words from a man who doesn't play games, doesn't do marketing theater, and doesn't post for attention. 3 words from someone who is not on the peripheral edge of Kendrick Lamar's world, but who is deeply, structurally embedded within it. 3 words arriving in the 24 to 48 hour window after a credible industry report confirmed a new Kendrick album is imminent. You could try to call that a coincidence. But if you have genuinely been paying attention to how this entire Kendrick Lamar era operates, if you've seen the deliberate precision with which every single signal has been deployed, you already know that there are no coincidences in this universe. Every single thing means something. Every single breadcrumb is placed intentionally. But wait. Because this isn't even the most important reason why Deets specifically posting this matters more than any other producer or collaborator doing the same thing. There is one piece of information about this particular producer that makes his cryptic three-word post absolutely staggering in its implications. And to understand it, we need to talk about the most mysterious and most anticipated piece of unreleased music in the history of hip-hop. Think about what I'm about to say very carefully, because the sheer audacity of what Kendrick Lamar has done here is almost impossible to wrap your brain around if you just look at it casually. There is a song that has been heard in fragments, in flashes, in brief and deliberately controlled glimpses that has never been released. It has never appeared on a streaming platform. It has never been officially unveiled. The full version has never been heard by the public. And yet, this song has managed to occupy more mental real estate in hip-hop discourse, generate more speculation, more anticipation, and more raw excitement than virtually any official release in recent memory. The song is called Bodies, or Tiramisu, or whatever name you want to assign to it, because the mystery around even the title is part of the design. And here is the staggering, almost surreal truth about this record. Deets produced it. That is the key that this man holds. Of all the musicians, collaborators, and creators who orbit Kendrick Lamar's world, Deets is the person who helped build the most discussed, most anticipated, most deliberately withheld song in modern rap. And now he's posting Let's Get It. Let me put into perspective just how extraordinary the trajectory of this song has been, because people are sleeping on this, and we cannot sleep on it. The first time the world heard Bodies was in the trailer for GNX, Kendrick Lamar's surprise album. The song played, built atmosphere and energy, created this incredible sense of gravity and imminent arrival, and then stopped. Cut off. The album dropped and Bodies was not on it. The world noted it. The world filed it away and assumed that perhaps it would come later. Perhaps it was an unreleased bonus. Perhaps it existed somewhere in the pipeline for a future project. Fine. Accepted. Move on. Then Kendrick Lamar steps onto the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show, the single largest music performance platform on the planet Earth, a stage watched by over 100 million people, the pinnacle of pop cultural visibility. And the show opens with Bodies. Again. And again, the song plays. And again, it stops before the full picture is painted. It is used as a launching pad, a dramatic entrance, a sonic statement of intent, and then it gives way to the spectacle that follows. Let that sink in. This song has now been used at two of the most important moments of Kendrick Lamar's career, an album announcement and the Super Bowl, and has never been released in full. There is nothing comparable to this in rap history. Artists tease music all the time. Artists build anticipation all the time. But what Kendrick has done with Bodies is not teasing. It is not marketing in the conventional sense. It is something far more intentional and far more architecturally complex than a standard promotional rollout. This song is being positioned as a threshold. Every time you hear it, you're about to witness something monumental. It is the musical equivalent of a door creaking open before you step into something that changes you. And the man who built that door, who engineered that sonic experience, who crafted the production that carries all of that weight, is Deets. The same Deets who just posted Let's Get It on Friday. The mathematical elegance of that timing is not lost on anyone who is genuinely paying attention. This isn't somebody who peripherally touched a project. This is the architect of the most important unreleased piece in Kendrick Lamar's entire current creative chapter, posting what is, in the context of who he is, an enormous and deliberate signal. And when you stack that on top of the industry insider report that had already landed the day before, the picture stops being speculative and starts being something that demands serious analysis. Now let's talk about the report itself, because this wasn't some anonymous Reddit post or some unverified Twitter gossip that got shared around. The person who dropped this information has a track record. That's the most important thing here. Anyone can claim to have sources. Anyone can post a dramatic paragraph claiming to know what's happening behind closed doors in the rap industry. The filter is accuracy over time. And this particular industry insider, this source who has been consistently correct throughout this entire year, this source who had information about Baby Keem's new album before it materialized, this source who has repeatedly demonstrated actual access to what is happening inside these creative circles, reported that Kendrick Lamar has been finishing the new album and is moving toward a release in the very near future. That is a statement that deserves to be read slowly and fully absorbed. This is not Kendrick is working on something. This is not sources say Kendrick might have new music eventually. The language was specific. Finishing. Final stages. Near future. This is the language of a project that has crossed the threshold from creation into preparation for deployment. And when that kind of specific language comes from a source with that kind of established accuracy, you do not dismiss it. You do not water it down with excessive hedging. You take it seriously and you start examining every other signal in the environment to understand what it all adds up to. And when you do that examination right now, when you genuinely take stock of the totality of what is happening in and around Kendrick Lamar's world, the signals are overwhelming. They're coming from too many independent directions with too much consistency to be anything other than what they appear to be. Dave Free has been visible. People close to the TD and PG Lang infrastructure have been showing a certain kind of energy. Isaiah Rashad recently had a conversation about Kendrick that revealed details about how locked in, how focused, and how surgically precise Kendrick is about his creative process at this exact moment in time, a man who is not dabbling, not exploring, not taking a casual creative vacation, but a man who is operating with the cold-blooded deliberateness of someone executing a plan that has been years in the making. When someone who is close to Kendrick describes the depth of his current focus, the way he thinks about every decision 10 steps in advance, the way he subjects his own work to the most brutal possible scrutiny before he considers it complete, that is the portrait of an artist who is not just making music. That is the portrait of someone who is building a monument. And if you need one more piece of this to click into place, think about the Grand National Tour. Think about what happened during those stadium shows, the biggest hip-hop tour in history, by the way, because something happened there that deserves far more attention than it received in the immediate moment. Kendrick played Bodies during the first MetLife Stadium show. He integrated it into his set, transitioned it into N95, and the energy in that stadium was electric. And then the second night, he didn't play it. Bodies disappeared from the set list. But something else appeared. A red GNX car, a massive, striking prop covered in a red tarp, materialized on that stage in the same show where Bodies was conspicuously absent. And then as the tour continued through its second half, Bodies never returned to the set. It was removed. Deliberately. Precisely. With what we can only describe as surgical intentionality. Think about why an artist of Kendrick Lamar's caliber, known for removing nothing from his creative architecture without a specific reason, would take a song out of a live set and simultaneously introduce a major new visual element. And think about the fact that the red GNX has already appeared in the Luther music video, another deliberate placement of that specific visual element. He is building a visual and sonic language around this record. He is creating an iconography. And he pulled it off the stage not because he lost interest in it, but almost certainly because it has a specific designated moment it is being saved for. The precision of these decisions is not accidental. The deliberateness is not incidental. This is a man playing a three-dimensional chess game where every single piece on the board serves a purpose in the ultimate endgame. And the endgame is getting closer. Let's talk about what Bodies might actually be, because when you understand the answer to that question, or even just the strongest theory around the answer, the stakes of this entire situation escalate to a level that is genuinely hard to describe. There is a growing consensus among fans who think deeply about Kendrick Lamar's work, supported by a significant amount of circumstantial and structural evidence, that Bodies is the Heart Part 7. And if you understand what the Heart series represents, then you already know why that specific designation would make this one of the most significant song releases in the history of modern hip-hop. The Heart series is not like any other song series in rap. It is not a franchise in the commercial sense. It is not a consistent stylistic or sonic identity. It is something far more unusual and far more profound than that. Each Heart installment has functioned as a portal, a way of accessing where Kendrick Lamar's mind and artistic consciousness are at a specific juncture in his journey. The Heart tracks have prefaced albums. They have arrived as warnings before seismic creative moments. They have served as direct communiques from the artist to the culture, delivered in a raw, unvarnished, maximally honest voice that strips away the layers of craft and character that Kendrick uses in his album work and just gives you pure signal. They are moments of total artistic transparency dropped at moments of total artistic transformation. Heart Part 6 was one of the defining moments of the Drake beef. It was a declaration of supremacy. It was a statement of purpose delivered with controlled fury and complete technical mastery. And it landed with a cultural impact that made it one of the most discussed diss tracks in rap history. Now imagine the logical extension of that. Imagine what a Heart Part 7, arriving after the GNX era, after the Super Bowl performance, after the Grand National Tour, after the full cultural earthquake of that entire chapter, imagine what that track is designed to say, designed to do, designed to set in motion. Because if the pattern holds, and Kendrick's patterns always hold, The Heart Part 7 would not just be a new song. It would be the announcement of a new chapter. It would be the beginning of the next era. It would be the door opening onto the album that follows it. And there is something almost preternaturally precise about the way Bodies has been deployed so far that maps almost perfectly onto this theory. Both times the song has been played publicly, something enormous happened immediately after. GNX dropped. The Super Bowl performance went down in history. This song is not being used as a standalone cultural artifact. It is being used as a mechanism of transition. It is the bridge between what was and what is coming. It is designed to arrive, play, and then give way to something even bigger. And the third deployment of the song, whenever it comes, however it comes, based purely on the structural logic of everything that has happened before, almost has to be the moment where we finally hear it in full and simultaneously understand that the next massive chapter of Kendrick's career has officially begun. Now here is where this gets uncomfortable for certain people in the room, and we are going to talk about it directly because avoiding it would be a failure of honest analysis. There is a side of this conversation that has been running a very particular playbook for the last year or so. It is a playbook built on noise, on manufactured metrics, on the relentless insistence that quantifiable data is the same thing as cultural impact, and on the strange and desperate project of convincing everyone that the moment of reckoning that came in the summer of 2024 was somehow not what it obviously and completely was. We are talking about Drake, the academics of the world, and the entire ecosystem of calculators and spreadsheets and streaming number arguments that has grown up around the project of rehabilitating a narrative that was simply, factually, and decisively dismantled. Let's be clear about something. The fake streams narrative was not a strategy. It was a life raft grabbed in a moment of drowning. When you have been beaten on every dimension that actually matters, artistry, cultural resonance, lyrical content, narrative construction, crowd response, peer respect, critical consensus, and you need something, anything. To hold on to that allows you to claim some form of victory. You reach for the one metric that is abstract enough, murky enough, and technical enough that you can argue about it indefinitely without any definitive resolution. You weaponize confusion. You manufacture doubt. You take the one question that is genuinely difficult to verify and you treat it as if it invalidates everything else that is unmistakably, empirically, obviously clear. That is not strategy. That is a tell. When someone who just lost a fight starts demanding a recount of the seats in the arena, they've already told you everything about how they feel about the result. And the academic media figures who have been riding that wave, dining with their preferred artist, performing loyalty through the specific kind of coverage that launders a narrative rather than examining it. These are people who have fundamentally misunderstood what hip-hop has always been at its core. Hip-hop has never been a spreadsheet. It has never been a portfolio. Its greatest practitioners have always understood that the game is ultimately about legacy, about art, about the kind of truth-telling that gets under people's skin and refuses to leave. When you strip all of the performance away from the greatest rap records of all time, what you find is someone trying to say something real about something real in a way that could only come from that specific person at that specific moment. That is what separates the catalog from the content mill. That is what separates the artist from the algorithm chaser. And that distinction is exactly why the conversation around Kendrick Lamar's next move is already, right now, before a single new song has dropped, more interesting, more textured, and more substantive than anything that has been said about his primary rival in months. We are sitting here analyzing the intentional structuring of an unreleased song's deployment pattern across 3 different major cultural moments. We are examining the symbolic significance of a red tarp on a prop car in a stadium show. We are decoding producer behavior patterns and insider source credibility hierarchies. This is what engagement with serious art looks like. This is what it looks like when a rapper's moves generate intellectual engagement rather than just commercial measurement. The contrast writes itself. I want to go deeper on the structural argument here, because I think it has not been fully articulated in the conversation around this, and it deserves to be examined in its full form because when you lay it out properly, it is genuinely remarkable. There is a pattern with Bodies. A very specific, very clear pattern. And if you are the kind of person who believes in patterns when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, and at this point, if you are not, you have not been paying attention, then this pattern is telling you exactly what comes next. Pattern point 1. Bodies plays in the GNX trailer. The song is not yet out. The album drops. Pattern point 2. Bodies plays at the opening of the Super Bowl halftime show. The song is not yet out. The biggest performance of Kendrick's career goes down in history. Pattern point 3. Bodies is integrated into the Grand National Tour set list for the first leg, then removed for the second leg in conjunction with the appearance of a new symbolic visual element, the red GNX prop. The song has still not been released. Now look at that sequence. Every time Bodies has been deployed in a public, visible, dramatic context, something enormous has followed immediately in its wake. And every time that happens, the song itself remains unreleased, held back, withheld, preserved for a final moment that has not yet arrived. The pattern is not subtle. Kendrick Lamar is using the song as a kind of sacred fire. He is lighting it and letting you see the flame for a moment, just long enough to understand that something is burning, and then he is taking it away before you can understand the full nature of what is being illuminated. And he has done this 3 times now. 3 separate deployments, 3 separate contexts, 3 separate cultural moments, and each time the song retreats back into silence before giving you the complete picture. If you understand anything about how Kendrick Lamar thinks, about his commitment to purposeful construction, about the way he has repeatedly demonstrated that everything in his creative architecture serves a function, then you have to conclude that the 3rd deployment was not the final one. The pattern demands a 4th moment. And the 4th moment, if the escalating scale of what has preceded it means anything, will be the moment the song finally delivers its complete vision. And here is the theory that I think deserves serious consideration. The 4th moment is the heart part 7. The 4th time Bodies is heard, it will be in its full form. It will be titled The Heart Part 7. And it will arrive as the gateway into Kendrick Lamar's new album, the largest, most ambitious project of his entire career. That is the trajectory the architecture is pointing toward. That is the logical, structural, aesthetically coherent conclusion of everything that has been constructed around this song over the last 18 months. And when it arrives, when that 4th moment finally happens, everything about the preceding timeline will suddenly snap into complete clarity. You will be able to look back at the GNX trailer, the Super Bowl opening, the stadium show, the red tarp, the producer's 3-word post, and the insider source report, and you will see that the entire design was visible the whole time. We just had to be patient enough to wait for the full image to emerge. Here is what I want people to really internalize before we close, because I think in all the legitimate excitement around the beef narrative, around the competitive back and forth, around the wins and losses and scores being kept, there is a risk of losing sight of something that is actually much larger and much more important than any of that. What Kendrick Lamar is preparing to do with this next creative chapter is not primarily about Drake. It is not primarily about whoever else might be on the receiving end of his observations about the current state of the rap game. The beef was a chapter. An important chapter, a culturally defining chapter, a chapter that demonstrated something very significant about the comparative artistic calibers of the people involved. But it was still just a chapter. What comes next, if the signals we are reading are even approximately correct, is the full book. This is a man who has positioned himself, through deliberate action, through sustained excellence, through consistent demonstration of what artistic seriousness actually looks like in practice, at the absolute apex of the art form he practices. And now he is preparing to produce a body of work from that apex. The new album, based on everything we are hearing and everything we are observing, is not going to be Kendrick Lamar responding to critics or rivals. It is going to be Kendrick Lamar operating from a place of total creative sovereignty and delivering the kind of statement that only someone who has gone through what he has gone through over the last 2 years could possibly make. That is a different kind of music. That is music made from a place of hard-won clarity. And music made from that place tends to matter for a very long time. The stakes of this release, understood in their full context, extend far beyond any competitive dimension. This is about what hip-hop can be when someone with Kendrick's talent, Kendrick's discipline, and Kendrick's genuine commitment to the art form decides to make the statement that only they can make at the precise moment when the culture is most ready to receive it. The last time the stars align this perfectly for a Kendrick Lamar release, with this level of cultural momentum, this level of anticipation, this level of accumulated context and narrative depth, was right before the most critically acclaimed album in hip-hop's modern era dropped. And every indication we have right now suggests that what is coming could be even more ambitious, could be even more sweeping, could be even more permanently significant. That is not hyperbole. That is the honest reading of what the evidence suggests. And if you want to understand why the people on the other side of this, the ones with the calculators, the ones recounting streams, the ones trying to use the language of commerce to argue about something that exists on an entirely different plane, are going to look so profoundly out of place in the moment this drops. It is because they have been measuring the wrong things with the wrong tools for the wrong reasons. When the real moment arrives, the metric dashboard is not going to tell you anything that matters. The art will tell you everything, as it always has. Let's be direct about something that the noise level of the current moment is actually telling us. There is a very specific kind of behavior that emerges in competitive situations when one party can feel the ground shifting beneath them. When someone is secure, when someone is winning on the merits and has a legitimate foundation beneath their position, they tend to be quieter. They tend to let their work speak. They don't need to flood the zone with rhetoric because the substance is doing the work for them. But when someone is insecure, when the foundation is cracking, when the thing they were confident about is starting to feel less certain, the noise gets louder. The attacks get more personal. The smears get more aggressive. The attempts to preemptively define the narrative before it can be defined by reality become more desperate and more frequent. Look at the current media environment around this rap conversation and tell me honestly which pattern you are observing. The side that has been on the ropes since the summer of 2024 is not getting quieter as Kendrick's return approaches. The academics are not retreating. The OVO-affiliated narrative building is not softening. The escalation of dismissals, the escalation of alternative narratives, the escalation of calculated hits on Kendrick's credibility, all of it is increasing, not decreasing. And the timing of that escalation is not coincidental. It is correlative with the increasing credibility of the signals that Kendrick is about to come back and reframe the entire conversation. People who are comfortable do not increase their defensive posture when nothing has happened yet. People who can feel what is coming start building the wall before the storm arrives. This is not commentary on the specific individuals involved. It is a structural observation about human behavior in high-stakes competitive situations. When you know that something is coming that you cannot neutralize through conventional means, your options are limited. You can prepare your own countermove, or you can try to poison the well before the water arrives. The second option is what we are watching in real time. And the reason it won't work is the same reason it never works against artists who have genuine, undeniable, structurally substantial creative output. You cannot successfully argue against something that speaks for itself. When the music arrives, it will make its own case. It will not need anyone to advocate for it. It will not need to be defended or explained or contextualized. It will simply be what it is. And what it is going to be, based on every piece of information we currently have access to, is something that cannot be argued down. It can only be experienced. Let me paint you the picture of what happens in the immediate aftermath of this release, because thinking about it carefully actually reveals something important about why the current moment is so historically significant and why being attentive to it right now actually matters. When Bodies, the Heart Part 7, or whatever it ends up being called in its final form, when that record drops, the first thing that happens is that an enormous amount of existing content becomes instantly obsolete. Every argument that has been built on the premise that Kendrick Lamar's moment has passed. Every take that has been constructed on the assumption that the summer of 2024 was a moment rather than a launching pad. Every piece of commentary that has tried to fill the silence with the suggestion that the silence itself was significant, all of it will retroactively reveal itself as the noise that it always was, just with better timing camouflage. The second thing that happens is that the album rollout begins in earnest. Because if the Body's deployment pattern tells us anything, it is that this song does not arrive alone. It arrives with what comes after it. It is the signal that the next chapter is starting, not the chapter itself. The album that follows Bodies into the world is going to land in a context that has been perfectly prepared for it. The cultural appetite has been building for over a year. The narrative context has been constructed through every move Kendrick has made since GNX dropped. The emotional investment of the fanbase is at a level that simply does not exist for virtually any other artist currently operating in this genre. When the record arrives, it will arrive into a world that has been specifically, deliberately, intentionally made ready for it. And the third thing that happens, the thing that will reverberate longest and matter most in the historical assessment of this period, is that the conversation around hip-hop will shift back to where it belongs. Back to the art. Back to the craft. Back to the question of what the music is actually saying and why it matters and what it reveals about the person who made it and the world they made it in. Back to the conversations that make this genre worth caring about in the first place. Away from the spreadsheets. Away from the streaming metrics debates. Away from the noise generated by people who are more invested in the business of arguing about music than in the experience of genuinely engaging with it. When serious art drops, it has a way of clarifying the room. It has a way of separating the people who are here for the thing itself from the people who are here for the conversation around the thing. And that clarification is going to be beautiful. There is one final dimension of this that I want to make sure we address, because it is the thread that ties everything else together, and it is the thing that, when you understand it fully, makes you appreciate the scope of what Kendrick Lamar is doing on a level that goes beyond admiration into something closer to awe. We're talking about the long game. We are talking about the deliberate, patient, extraordinarily disciplined practice of making decisions that seem puzzling or incomplete in the moment, but that are revealed, in retrospect, to have been perfectly calibrated components of a larger design. Every major artist in any creative field who achieves lasting significance rather than just momentary success is playing this game. But very few play it at the level Kendrick plays it. The decision to withhold bodies is a long game decision. The decision to play it at the G-Next trailer and the Super Bowl and the first leg of the stadium tour and then remove it is a long game decision. The decision not to respond to every provocations and noise with immediate reactive content, but to let the silence do its own work while the real preparation continues underground, that is a long game decision. Every single piece of what we have been discussing today is a component of a design that is operating on a timeline and with a precision that most people in the music industry simply cannot maintain. Because most people in the music industry are not playing this game. They are playing the quick game, the reactive game, the algorithm game, the trending topic game. Kendrick is playing the legacy game. And the legacy game is won by making decisions that serve the work rather than decisions that serve the moment. It is won by holding onto a piece of music through two of the biggest cultural moments of your career, because you know exactly what that music is for and exactly when it needs to arrive. It is won by taking a song off a stadium tour set list, because the song has a more important appointment later. It is won by having the discipline to finish an album before you announce it rather than announcing it before you've figured out what it is. It is won by surrounding yourself with collaborators, producers like Dietz, who understand the mission so deeply that when they break their usual silence to post 3 words online, those 3 words carry the weight of everything that has been built together over years. This is what the long game looks like from the inside while it is still being played. You don't always get to watch the construction while it is happening and understand exactly what is being built. But we're at the moment now where the blueprint is close enough to completion that you can see the shape of the final structure. You can see where the walls are going. You can see where the doors are being placed. And what is being built is enormous. What is being built is something that rap has not seen in a very long time, if it has ever seen it quite like this. Here is where we land. Here is the summation of everything we have walked through today, assembled into the clearest possible picture of what we are looking at right now in hip-hop. Kendrick Lamar is coming back. Not vaguely, not eventually, not in some abstract future sense, but soon. The insider report is specific about the timing. The producer signal is unmistakably pointed. The structural logic of the body's deployment pattern is demanding its fourth and final moment. The creative energy in Kendrick's orbit is operating at the frequency of someone who has something finished and ready. And the wider context, the tour completed, the chapter closed, the new era logically demanded, is providing the perfect frame. Be ready. Watch the signals. Keep your timeline clear. Because the most important musical moment of 2026 is not in the past. It is not somewhere vague in the distance. It is right here. Right in front of us. Visible if you know how to look. And the first time you hear those opening bars of Bodies play in a context that is different from anything that has come before, the first time that song arrives with the full weight of everything it has been built to carry, you are going to feel the entire significance of this moment crystallize in real time. And you will know that everything we discussed here today was pointing exactly here. Exactly to this. Every breadcrumb, every signal, every producer whisper, every industry source confirmation. All of it was pointing to the moment when Kendrick Lamar steps back into the center of the stage and reminds the world what it sounds like when someone is operating at the highest possible level of the art form. And if you have been here for this entire video, if you have absorbed all of this, and you feel like your understanding of what is happening right now has genuinely deepened, then please, subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Not because the algorithm needs it, not because of a number, but because this is the space where we do this work properly. We are here for the long game, just like Kendrick. We are here for the art, the analysis, and the honest conversation about what this music actually means. If that is why you are here, this is your community. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Come back for every update as this story develops, because I promise you, it is only going to get bigger and more extraordinary from here. The quiet before this particular storm has been long. But the storm itself is going to be one for the history books. Stay locked in. The signal has been given. The countdown has begun. And none of this, is going to be the same on the other side.